Good morning, world. This is Steve Rao, the host of Pod TV's World Edition. And on Pod TV, we talk about news from around the world, innovation, and continue our discussion on an ever changing world during the COVID pandemic as we deal with the Omicron variant, other variants, and what a COVID economy and post COVID economy will look like. Today, my monologue is based on a special moment that will be taking place this evening as I will be sworn in for my fourth term to the Town Council of Morrisville, a town that recently was ranked number one city or town to live in North Carolina, and a few months ago, one of 10 All America cities in the United States of America by the National Civic League. Morrisville's story is a story that really embraces what American democracy is about. It's been a remarkable journey which began in 1852 when an entrepreneur named Jeremiah Morris founded this town at a rail stop in Morrisville, right here. It was a small town surrounded by woods, and up until the year 2000, there were only a few thousand people that lived in Morrisville. The history of Morrisville is rich, particularly black history, as many of the freed slaves after the Civil War settled in a community called Shiloh, and they mined tobacco crops. As the Research Triangle Park grew and big companies like IBM and others would come in, Cisco and Lenovo, Morrisville grew. And today is home to 10% of all public companies in our state. How did a town come so far so fast? Well, it didn't happen by luck. In my opinion, it happened through a few things that I think we need to observe today that I wanted to share with the viewers. First, celebrating unity in our diversity. Morrisville is home to almost every nation in the world. Immigrants from all around the world have come here to pursue the American dream. And when you combine that diversity with innovation, technology, you have an amazing democracy at work. A couple of examples of this innovation are the smart shuttle that my son can now take when he wants to go to the park by using an app on a smartphone. And this was possible because of the smart city initiatives, a connected park initiative, which we won an award by the Research Triangle Park Clean Tech Cluster. An award ceremony where our Governor Roy Cooper got the Clean Tech Champion of the Year award. We have a solar array on our fire station, getting visibility to energy usage. And we have many, many more plans ahead of an app that will enable citizens to connect in real time on decisions that we make as a council, even perhaps incorporating artificial intelligence, data, and analytics so we can be on the cutting edge of technology. I could go on and on about all of the achievements, but at the end of the day, we are a town where we live connected and live well. That is our brand. We are a great place to live, work, and play. But everything that we've done, my council, previous council before me, have been united in one thing, one goal, to enhance the quality of life for our residents. This is a great thing that American democracy should always be about. How ironic it is that in a divided era, when we see so much partisan politics at the national level, that so much progress is taking place right before our eyes here in North Carolina in the great town of Morrisville. I'm proud that I've had the chance to be a member of this All America team. We have a lot of knowledge, and together we will continue to do great things for the citizens of our state, the citizens of our town, and the citizens of the Triangle region. I'll close with a quote given by one of my favorite actors, Al Pacino, in the movie City Hall. He played a role of Mayor John Ossoff, a New York mayor, who was addressing a congregation after a young man had been murdered in a park. He reminded the audience or the church attendees there in his script that all good things flow into the city because of the city's greatness. He quoted Pericles, the mayor of Athens. How true it is. Maybe Pericles had it right. The last place today in American government that works for the people, is the city. And I'm proud that I'm a city council member today for the fourth time. Thank you all. You can watch it on Facebook and stream it on our website at thetownofmorrisville.org. With me today, we have Mark Lee. Hello.
Hello,
Hello.
how's it going?
And I haven't prepared my remarks today, but that was good practice.
Oh yeah, that was a good thing, and I definitely know about the town of Marsville and Shiloh, and you're right about that history. I even remember when my good friend in Gaza was doing a protest around Shoney's and some of the racial relations and some of the things that they were doing in terms of pay and things along that nature. And Marsville was definitely at the center of that struggle. That would have been probably sometime in the 80s and 90s when I was doing a lot of journalism reporting for the Carolina Times at that particular time. Well, actually, the Carolinian, the one in Raleigh, the African American newspaper there. But I've known him for a number of years, and he'll probably be getting ready to do a Kwanzaa celebration later on. I know that I think I attended the one last year, and who knows, I may try to reach out and see about attending the one this year as well, as we are in the middle of the holiday season and things along that nature. But definitely, that is where I learned a lot about the history around Shiloh. And you are right, it is a very rich history there as well. So, very rich history, and one that I'm sure a lot of people will be interested in learning more about and all of that. We are joined,
Yes.
and I see he just joined us by Sasha Starr, who is
Hello.
coming to us from Canada and has always got some amazing advice and amazing thoughts around investment. And then we've got the big boss, Nick, that is
And
here as well.
yes. And just a couple of observations. We begin the show today. I'm here for about 30 minutes today because I got a big day. Got to get on my suit all ready and get ready for the big night. Get my sleep and rest. Got to look good. But you know, at the end of the day, I think it's interesting that we often talk on this show about national politics, the Congress and the Senate, and it's amazing that there's a lot of great things happening in cities and towns. And it really is a place in government where it shows you what can happen when you have engaged citizens working together, a world class staff doing really great things. And maybe one thing we can do on World Edition is to talk about other things going on in the cities of our respective countries, Australia, Canada. Mark, Durham, Nick. You live in Raleigh, but I just thought it would be a good theme today just to have a discussion about the role cities can play in this pandemic and during this pandemic, and also there's been a lot of talk about the future of cities being in danger. And I read Fareed Zakaria's book, and then I read the afterword, and this whole notion of how will cities change, which I think is something also that we need to talk about. Will offices be used as much? When I go to Raleigh downtown, and Sasha, I'd love to get your input on this, in Toronto or Vancouver or other cities, even where you live, is it, are people not going back to these big offices, and what's going to happen? That's one concern I have, is what's going to happen to the commercial real estate market. But I'm going to just go around the table here as we have just a really high level discussion. Start with you, Sasha, just in your opinion in Canada about cities and the power of democracy at the local level.
Interesting question. The democracy. I don't remember when I last heard that word in Canada at all. Just people, as democracy never existed and doesn't exist and will never exist again. It's just not part of the discussion, not among the people, not among the politicians, and not like everywhere. It's just, I think it's disappeared from the discussion. Whether it's good or not, I can't even say one way or another. Mm, Maybe other panelists will address that.
Yeah, Nick. Well, we'll come back to you, Sasha. But I mean, I think we just would like to, obviously, I think I hear nothing but great things about Canadian cities like Toronto, Vancouver, other great cities, and Montreal. And so I think there's just a lot of great things going on in those cities. We'll start with you, Mark. We'll go to you. What are your thoughts about, are you? I know Durham has a set of challenges with crime and
Mhm.
shootings, but there's also great things going on like the DPAC and the restaurants and kind of this, sense of living and working and playing. Are you excited about the promise in Durham moving forward? Do you think it's also a good example of what can happen when people come together? There's been much vision going back all the way to Bill Bell, to where we are now of what Durham became.
Oh yeah, and I definitely have a lot of that hope for Durham and everything. I've always been proud of the city that I choose to call home and the city that I was born in, even though I spent some time living in rural North Carolina as well when I was a child living in Warrenton, well, a child and a young adult and things of that nature. But definitely, I have a great deal of hope for the city of Durham. I think that our new mayor will continue to do some uh, great things that she has done in some of her other jobs when she was a judge and when she was a dean over at North Carolina Central University, interim dean in their law school. So I definitely think that she's got some challenges ahead of her, like you said, about the crime and are people concerned about the rise in prices of housing and some people concerned about gentrification. And there are issues around that. Of course, we've got what I consider a pretty decent public transportation system, but there are parts of it that I would like to be able to get to places that are not as easy. And I know that me and Nick have talked about light rail because I would love to be able to possibly make a run down to Charlotte or to some of the other cities that are nearby. And while it's easy to get to, say, Chapel Hill or to get to Raleigh by our regular TTA transit and everything, getting to Charlotte or getting to Fayetteville or getting to some of the other outlying cities and definitely some of the cities outside of North Carolina, not as easy. I mean, it's not hard in terms of like you make it happen, but it's not as easy as saying jumping on the big green bus and heading over to Chapel Hill or to Raleigh. And I know that they've been talking about that light rail for a while, and it's been a constant conversation. And then sometimes certain entities will decide to pull the plug. And one of them is a major university, that being Duke. And I know that Nick has talked about that in the past as well, because even though it might help bring some of their employees into the town, for whatever reasons, they are not the biggest fans of it. And coming back to something you said about the buildings, yes, that is a concern here as well, because a lot of people are deciding to stay at home and work from home, which means that there will be empty buildings, including in some of our universities. So that commercial real estate will be interesting. And I would love to hear from Sasha that part of what your question was, because while they may not have the same democracy system, I am thinking that they still have some of the same issues around commercial real estate, because that's more about the pandemic and the pandemic's effect on the work than it is necessarily about democracy, because more people are working from home. Therefore, the buildings are staying empty. And I imagine that that's the same whether you're in Germany, whether you're in Canada, or whether you're here in the US. So that is a concern that I think a lot of people are having. As a matter of fact, I just saw a poll, and Nick will probably get me back to our poll and everything. But the poll was asking how folks would respond to a Zoom call. Like if you had a Zoom call at 9 a.m., would you basically wake up at an hour ahead of time like you would
Yeah,
if you
and
were
it's
a regular meeting, or would you wake up 10 minutes before?
and it's funny you mentioned that, and Nick, what we want to hear from you, and then we're going to go to some other topics today before I have to leave. But and I'll be back for the full hour tomorrow, guys. It's just been a crazy week. But what is your really quickly, I want to jump in on an example that I think is very interesting of how in a post-COVID world, um, how our quality of life can change. So I had to go to Durham today for a board meeting that I serve on, and
Mhm.
my car is doing some weird things, and so I had to go all the way to American Underground and come back. And before this pandemic, there would be no option for me to go all the way and come back, and I need that extra hour and a half to be getting things ready, before and after that meeting. But now, what's beautiful is I can just use the Zoom option, and I don't have to make that trip and park and come all the way back. Now I'm going to miss the free lunch, which is a bit of a bummer, but I get 2 hours of my day back, and I'm going to feel pretty good going in tonight rather than the stress. And what if my car did shut down in the middle of the highway and I've got to call AAA and come? You never know, right? So isn't that amazing how this accelerated? And Sasha Starr has talked about this. Perhaps from a business perspective, Sasha, don't you think that you've told me, you have more productive meetings if you're doing that pre-qualification before you go have a meeting on a business deal, right? So that it's more productive.
Well, my opinion is that Zoom largely eliminates all the corruption between businesses and individuals, and it's more difficult to arrange for kickbacks and other nice things. So a lot of people don't like Zoom meetings and prefer face-to-face. There are also situations where face-to-face meetings are absolutely necessary. I understand that as well, and hopefully they will continue. But I think that 75% of the meetings are just a waste of time and could be conducted by Zoom. And actually, the less meetings there are, the better, because the meeting is nothing but whoever calls the meeting, he needs something. So when you accept somebody's invitation to the meeting, so you already have to be prepared that something will be most likely extracted from you, and so you have to build up your defenses as not to get duped into these situations. However,
Right.
on previous topics, I missed one thing, and I didn't have a chance to ask what's common between empty offices in the cities and democracy. I just completely
Oh no,
can't
no. I mean,
figure
no.
that out.
I think the post-COVID world. I mean, it's just when we're talking about cities. um, how will cities have to reshape themselves if, for example, people just aren't coming to the offices? So that's one thing I've noticed in Raleigh, for example, not as many people coming into the big high rises to work. So you notice that during the day, there's less people out in the streets. There is on the weekend, and eventually this is going to affect our commercial real estate market, right? Because if I can't rent out the offices and people leave, what's going to happen to all these empty buildings? Now, maybe eventually it'll go back to the way it was, but I'm seeing that people are still working more remote. So that's the point I was trying to make. Not so
But
much
there is
away.
nothing about democracy in that respect, because the
Yeah.
downsizing and the expected losses in real estate, it will be mitigated by business. A lot of buildings will be redeveloped into hotels. Maybe hotels are not doing that well either. So not hotels, maybe medical buildings, maybe. I don't know, offices. I don't know. There are ways to redevelop this dead.
Yeah, I mean that's the point. How will the redevelopment
Just
occur?
hold on one
Yes.
second. The only thing that I would argue with you on that, Sasha, is that where it may come into play with democracy is, and Nick can allude to this better than I can since he is a lawyer, when it comes down to zoning issues. And that is a thing that our city councils, our county commissioners, our various democratically elected offices would have to determine if those buildings stay empty and if they're zoned right now for, say, commercial real estate, and then they are going to be turned into something else. Then you have this whole conversation with the public, and that's where democracy may come into play. So I hear what you're saying about not understanding the connection, but that's where I would make the connection, is because if they are zoned commercial or they're zoned commercial residential, and then you wind up flipping them to residential, then the people that are in those neighborhoods might be like, wait a minute, I don't want these people living in me, particularly if you're talking about bringing in, and there's been talk about this, bringing in like the homeless, or bringing in some of the other residents that are not, in some cases, considered for whatever reasons desirable, because that has been a conversation that has been held as well. So there's been talk about using these buildings to alleviate the homeless situation or alleviate some of the other situations that exist. And that's where it becomes a question around the politics involved, and therefore democracy. That's what I would make that point and everything. Wouldn't you agree with me on that, Nick? Because that's when it becomes an issue, is with zoning.
Zoning?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, zoning is one issue, but we do have an economic issue when it relates to housing and cities, which I don't know if Morrisville has addressed it.
Oh
But,
yeah, yes. Housing is a
okay,
big issue.
but
Yeah.
here's one of the real problems that is facing New York City right now. At least the data I'm getting, 50% of a person's income, 50% in the Bronx is being used just to pay for housing.
Right.
Okay, that really means there's very little discretionary income or income to base. There's almost none after you pay for food, water, electricity. You're working all the time for your landlord. Okay, and this has been a demographic shift that's been going on for a long time. where they even pointed out today, the people in Kellogg that is up in Detroit, the workers there, they have different classes of workers. The old workers, they're in one system. The new workers get paid half or then some. And so what we're seeing right now, and I don't know, maybe this was the reason of the Russian Revolution years ago, was the workers get squeezed into oblivion. And we're seeing that in the United States, but it's like what we used to call the frog in the frog in hot water. If you put a frog in hot water, they'll jump out. But if you put them in water and you slowly turn on the burner, they'll burn to death. Okay, here's what's happening to the American worker. We're not dropping them into the hot water. What we're doing is we put them in the hot water and we're slowly burning them to death. And so, you know, if you look at it from one respect, is 50% of your income going to housing the future of what we're looking at in the United States of America? Since the other, oh, wait, here comes Mark. Yeah. Okay, he might have something to say about this, maybe.
No,
okay.
just I hear what you're saying.
In other words,
I definitely agree. It was just that thing called a
half of what
that was about to happen.
Goes to that. Now, there's a beneficiary on the other side. It's the landlord. It's just like in stocks. There's a beneficiary on the other side. It's the investor. So there's beneficiaries on the other side. My theory is you're screwed. Okay. And you better quickly get on the other side as fast as you can. In other words, you better become a landlord as quick as you can, or be a stock owner as quickly as you can. Otherwise, you are so screwed. And so the thing is, what they don't teach us in school is that, and I wish David K. Johnson's book, It's Worse Than You Think, would bring the economic realities to people's lives here in the United States and elsewhere too, that if you don't get on the other side of this game, you are so screwed. I don't know what Sasha thinks about this, but my belief, and that's one reason I'm not too sympathetic about the people that lost their lives in the revolutions, because a lot of them were, you know, they were rich lowlives. So I don't give a rat's rear about them. Same with people in Cuba. Hey, you know, now, not to say the next group that came in was any better. That's the sad part, you know, but at the same time, there was absolutely reasons where the oligarchs and the upper class had so much money in Russia, and everybody else was bloody peasants. So I don't know what
Nick, you mentioned that, and I did watch the economic show yesterday and everything. And one of the things y'all talked about was how a significant portion of the Latin American population that is coming in, whether they're coming into Miami or coming into Texas or a number of other places, are now deciding to vote Republican, overwhelmingly so, and things of that nature. And one of the things I think I put in the chat, but I don't know if y'all ever responded back to it, was, yes, I hear that, and I've heard that for decades and now, but isn't the truth of the matter that a lot of those folks were coming from more of the ruling class, for lack of a better term? So they were like the people.
They absolutely were. And the thing is, as Benjamin Disraeli said, I am a conservative progressive or a progressive conservative, which I think is not a mutually exclusive thing to be. In other words, and that's basically where I'm at. I'm a progressive conservative because there are certain things that still need to be done to fundamental conservative values. But at the same time, there's some things that need to be done that are progressive at the same time. And the real question is, how do you achieve the balance? I think that the revolutions in Russia and Cuba would have been better if they had benevolent despots rather than just despots, and they didn't. You know, and so now all of a sudden they're in deep trouble. We were talking about yesterday on Economics Monday. The United States is not immune to becoming the next Venezuela or Cuba, or it's not immune to becoming the next Russia because of the economic system here. And as I say, the most important thing, and that's the reason we do Economics Monday, is actually what Bill Clinton figured out. It's the economy, stupid, you know. And I don't see how it's going to work, Mark, that you take 50% of somebody's income to rent. Okay, that just doesn't make any sense.
And Nick, I would like to observe something very interesting, since now you're talking about Russia, and I know things about Russia. I would suggest that today's Russia is way much more capitalist society than United States. Way much more. In Russia, There
Oh,
is no subsidies. People who don't
sure.
work really don't
Oh,
eat.
yeah, right, right.
Really.
Oh no, that was my experience. Was when I was in St. Petersburg. I mean,
Right.
it was very much a capitalistic system. So
It
to
is.
even say Russia is communist is ridiculous. You know, it is
Today
definitely.
it's not. No.
Yeah, today it's not. It's very, very much a capitalistic system, and capitalism has its good points as well as
Yes.
its
But
failures. You
Nick,
know,
can't
so
you
there's
say
no
this?
question about that.
Nick, can't
What?
you say the same thing to that about the leading country that we're talking about in terms of being our in the middle of a Cold War now and everything? I have never visited China, and I'll definitely say that
Sure.
and everything. But I have had family members that have visited, and the
Yeah.
way that they describe it, and this was decades ago that they visited it, but the way that they describe it, it seems like it is much more of a um, capitalist society. I mean,
Sure.
what's going on with
Yeah.
Evergrande and some of the
Yeah.
other things that are going on than an actually
Well,
true socialistic society. I don't think that Mao would
right.
recognize the China of
No,
today.
no, no. The thing is, it's almost like you have to have balance, Mark. You have to have a
Mhm.
balance between capitalism and socialism. The question is always, what is the balance? And then you have the extremists that jump up, oh, communism is the only way to go. Then you have the extremists, oh no, capitalism is the only way to go. When the reality is, at least the demographics tend to point to this, the ones that have a optimal balance, whatever that might be,
Mhm.
tend to be the most successful countries. And that's where China, when they kind of said, well, this whole model of everybody doesn't own anything and everybody owns everything isn't working. Okay. So they basically got rid of that model and they moved toward a more capitalist system. They go, wow, people are more inclined because they have some pride of the fact their ownership. They own something rather than they're just there and it's part of everybody else. So now let's go back to the Bronx. Okay. There's no pride of ownership there because they're all renters.
Mhm.
And it make everything worse. Okay, make it worse. Half of what they make goes to the landlord. And I
Mhm.
was thinking about that, Mark. Here's one of the practical problems. Normally, you'd say, this is BS. I'm going to leave.
Right.
The problem is, where do you leave and what job do you get? In
Mhm.
other words, like if you were a rational human being, you would go, well, this is horrible. I need to get out of the bloody Bronx and go somewhere else. And unfortunately, people tend to get stuck in their own cities now that and their own way of life, their own job. That moving, it's not like easy. Hey, I'm going to pack everybody up. I'm going to go to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and get a new job, or I'll cross the border and go to Toronto and get a new job. We already know immigration rules are there to basically serve the upper class so that people can't move. I mean, if you look at it, that's the realities of it. You
Yeah.
can talk all you want about immigration. Immigration is there to serve the rich people. All right.
That's
Because otherwise, what would happen is we would say, well, let them in. Well, we're, let them into Canada. We don't want them in Canada. You see, so the thing is, they put these restrictions on because it serves the wealthy, which is what most quote governments are designed to do. They're not designed to serve the lower class. They're designed to make sure
yeah.
the lower classes has subsidy level. In other words, they don't get too far out of line.
No,
You
Nick,
know,
but wasn't
I'm,
that the part
I'm
of the
speaking
problem?
like my friend Karl Marx, by the way.
Nick, but wasn't that part of the problem? And I'd love to hear Sasha take on this as well, because like I said, I was listening to the show yesterday with you use examples like Venezuela and Cuba, because if you use
Sure,
Venezuela
bad.
before Chavez and you use Cuba before Castro and everything, part of the appeal of those places was that they were basically playgrounds for the rich of other countries, and
They were
therefore
right.
there was some serious class divide. I won't even say race divide.
Sure.
There was some serious class divides, and that's what caused the revolutions in those places because they were not too happy if they were seeing, whoever the Hollywood stars of the day coming down
Yeah.
and
No,
cavorting around their area, and
look,
then
look, look. I, I,
not
I,
having the
I
benefits.
understand that, but see, that goes back to the Gini coefficient that they're not allowed mobility. If
Mhm.
if the people had mobility in Venezuela, there wouldn't be the revolution.
Right.
And when the revolution did take place, are these people better off today than they were prior to revolution? The answer is no. See, and that's the problem. In other words, as they go through this gate of revolution, oh, I hate the rich, which is not the right attitude. I hate the rich. Let's go all kill them, and then let's move on to something better. They hate the rich, they kill them, and they actually move on to something worse, which now leads me to our friend Joe Biden and his new $2 trillion spending bill. This is definitely a bad idea. Okay, and that's a bad idea because of the way it's structured. It doesn't provide any revenue or assets to the United States of America. If he told me, look, we're going to do a new $2 trillion spending bill, and here's what we're going to do, Mark. We're going to give people wages to build manufacturing buildings in the United States. We're going to give money to small businesses to create more businesses. Okay, then I'm all in. I'm going like, dude, it's like the infrastructure bill. It's a social infrastructure bill to help entrepreneurs succeed. I'm all in. But that's not what it's doing. It's saying, hey, you ain't doing anything. Here's some money, dude. It just really doesn't work. And what you're doing, your friend Joe is basically taking us on the path to, and he doesn't know. I mean, you got to give this guy a little not credit. He's not the brightest star in the sky. He doesn't know he's taking us to the path of, and neither does most of the Democrats. Hugo Chavez, Fidel Castro, a chicken in every pot, a fish in every pan. But they don't say, no, we're going to show you how to fish and how to get the chicken. In other words, we're going to raise chickens. Okay? Even he said this, I'm going to I'm going to put out money so people can start their chicken farms. I would be happy with that. But that's not what it's doing. It is a unbelievable what I call it, pandering to the lower classes, and I totally disagree. So anyway, oh wow, Steve has jumped in.
Well,
so I'm knocking your president, baby, on his spending bill.
Well,
as a good Democrat, I cannot support it. Okay, in other words, and I hope that it gets defeated because it doesn't provide jobs for people. In other words, it's pandering to poor people, but it's not saying, okay, I'm going to provide a manufacturing job. I'm going to support entrepreneurs. I'm going to support businesses. It doesn't do that. It says, hey, you're a poor dude. Here's some money, and it's $2 trillion of money. It's a bad idea.
And I'm sorry, guys. I got 2 calls that I had to take. I really apologize. But yeah, I'm going to talk about that tomorrow, and we're also going to talk about abortion and this whole 15-week law and what that's going to mean for the future of Roe v. Wade. We're going to talk about disruption in American democracy and what's going on in other states about how the presidential elections.
We're actually having a television show tonight on abortion at 7:00.
Yeah, that's what I'm sworn in. You got invited me. But real quickly, just to wrap up, California is reinstating a mask mandate. The Supreme Court is allowing New York State's vaccine mandate for healthcare workers. The pandemic is hurting New York City's tourism. The 5 hours on the tarmac, Omicron has turned a Times reporter's flight into a nightmare. There's an interesting story about that. And, from a political perspective, the House committee is recommending charging Mark Meadows for stonewalling the investigation. Joe Manchin is not on board with climate and social spending. And
see, that's the other thing. I agree with Joe on this one. I hope he puts his foot down and stops.
Prime Minister Naftali Bennett became the first Israeli leader to make an official visit to the United Arab Emirates. And, I could go on and on. Lots of interesting stuff going on in the world. I'll be back tomorrow. Wish me well as I'm suited and booted, and I do solemnly swear to uphold the laws of the land for the 4th time. And who knows, right? 2060, that's the goal to the White House.
2060 in the White House. Yes, I have your executive mansion ready.
90 years old, right?
Yeah, it'd be like Joe's age going in. So that's good. Yeah, well, tonight I think we do have an abortion show, and also Barbara H. Smith is going to be on also right afterwards. So we got some good programming coming up this evening, which is normally we don't have a lot of evening programming. We do now. We are beaming into Al Jazeera. Just to let you know, they keep taking our programs.
Al Jazeera, hey. So can I tell my mother that I'm on international news? I mean, that's just like one of my.
Technically you are. I'm just telling you how. Technically, how they're. I'm telling you how they're doing it.
Can I tell my colleagues I'm not syndicated, but I'm a host
of a show. Okay. Here's how it's being done. You're on Al Jazeera's Facebook news page. Okay, which has about,
politicians.
About 41,000 people, and I cringe every time you talk about Morrisville because I'm thinking the people in Qatar are going, Morrisville, where's that? Raleigh. I know that, but I don't know where it is. Hey, listen, Steve, start asking when the international people come on, other ones start asking them where Raleigh is. I've already done this. No one knows where it is. I say North Carolina. Oh yeah, I know where that is. And
Yeah,
that's
they
the
don't live in the
reality of
States.
that's the reality of it. So when you're talking
Well,
about
guys, thank you so
Morrisville,
much. Be safe wherever you are. Sasha Star, so great to see you. Remember, everybody, watch his show, Economics Monday. Watch Chess Stars. We got a
and,
world class, all American
and
team
modern
here.
investing
It's
tomorrow.
tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
Modern investing with Sasha. Great show.
Yeah.
Dinner party with Mark Lee, and
Tomorrow also.
yours truly, World Edition. We got a great team. Need some females on the crew. We got to bring on
Oh,
some women, and
well,
we're going to bring in
we
some
could
more
change
guests.
our name to become the Other View. I was thinking about this because my wife loves the View. It's all women, and we're all guys, so we could be the Other View.
Are you accepting transgenders too?
I don't know.
No.
That's up
Big
to
Ten.
Mark and Steve. It's
Big
their
Ten.
show. I mean, I just show up.
I'm not going to answer that question.
You know. So,
All right, guys. I'll see you.
okay, we'll see. Namaste.
He's going to pass on that one. I don't blame him.
Well, then you can throw it, Mark. Hey, since Steve's gone, see, I didn't want to bring this up with Steve's here because he wants to talk about other things. The poll that you did yesterday, okay? Let's talk about the poll because it was on LinkedIn. How many views do you have on that poll right now? Is it still running?
Right now we are crossing the 500,000 mark because we're at 431,489 views. So
you have how many views, Mark?
431,489 views.
Wow. Okay, so you're approaching
there have been 12,437 votes. So right now the race is tightening, by the way, because it was very
the race is tightening. How many votes do you have right now on this?
12,437 votes. The worst president of the four that I gave right now, Carter is still leading, but by only 41%. Trump is pushing up on him. He's at 40%. Nixon is coming behind at 13%, and Buchanan, the historical figure, is running a distant fourth at 7%. But the race is tightening between Trump and Carter. So the race is tightening.
Well, our broadcast goes to LinkedIn. As a matter of fact, I helped out Brandon. He doesn't even know that because I got travel sites. I was on there. Okay, so I'm going to rebroadcast this to the political coffee house that loves stuff like this, Mark. And if there's a way, I don't know how to get that thing over to me. I'm searching for that poll, the worst presidents poll, because the thing is,
just do it as a share, but I'll try to share it to you.
Yeah, share it over to me so I can post it on the political.
But you know what I discovered yesterday, which I did not know, but I did send you an email about it and everything, is that LinkedIn also does this other fascinating thing, and I think that Sasha will find some of this fascinating as well, because they will also break down your categories as to where the people are voting from and their jobs. So apparently 12,395 people that have viewed the post, and this is actually the people that are viewing it, are coming from New York City. I have no relatives in New York City, so I don't know who these people are, but 12,395 people are coming from New York City. 8,702 are coming from Greater Houston. 7,907 are coming from Dallas-Fort Worth, and 6,982 are coming from the Los Angeles metropolitan area, with 6,678 coming from Atlanta. And they even break down by jobs, because apparently 624 people. This is what I really found interesting. I don't know what's going on. And let's see, Amazon is the one that's owned by Bezos, right? I would get my.
I think LinkedIn is owned by Microsoft, I believe.
No, but I'm saying, but Amazon itself is owned by Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, right. Jeff Bezos is Amazon.
Right. And apparently 624 people from Amazon have viewed the post, and 333 from Lockheed Martin, and 275 from the U.S. Army, and 236 were self-employed. And then they even break down the career. So 33,524 people who have viewed the whole post and everything were salespeople. That's what it says. Salespeople. And 50,636 were executive directors. We have no idea what they were executive directors of, but they were executive directors. And 10,193 were business strategists, with another 6,633 business owners and 6,182 being project managers.
Okay, well, here's what I think we should do with this, Mark, because you're getting so much views. That what happens?
Statistics apparently.
Usually the poll ends after 7 days.
Okay? And this one's scheduled to end after 7 days too.
Okay, so the thing is, and then you have your results. Right. What we'll do is, after the results, we'll do a IBM TV special, a P.O.D TV special on the results of the poll of the worst president. Okay, so and then of course we can rebroadcast it on the 21st. But what we'll do is let's do a poll. Let's do a special show of the results of the worst president. But I thought that was a pretty hot question.
It was a hot question.
And
like I said,
anybody in media, because we went over it on Media Monday, anybody knows that if you put a question out and you get this amount of response in 2 days, that you got a pretty hot question out there. And this one is obviously
well, our good buddy David Gray, so his poll just closed because he asked the poll that did not get the same kind of results where he asked, do you think firing 900 people over Zoom is appropriate? Because you remember that was that whole thing about people firing, and he got like 800 votes or close to about 808 votes. And the overwhelming majority, because actually I remember voting on this poll, did say no. And I can agree. How the heck you going? Like, I've seen some, what's really interesting, I don't know, Sasha, is this a thing in Canada? But I know here in the U.S., there have been several times where people get very frustrated because for whatever reason, I get the reason, and actually because you have both the fiscal year, which ends close to actually it ends around my birthday, and the Canadian Independence Day, which is around July 1st and everything. And then you have the end of the calendar year. So a lot of times businesses will, even though it's not seen as being all that great, they will choose to downsize around the holidays, like around Thanksgiving and Christmas, because that is also the end of the calendar year. And I think the same thing happens around around July 1st and the whole 4th of July and things of that nature, because that's around the end of the fiscal year. So my question, Sasha, is do y'all do that same kind of practice, or did you see that same kind of practice either in Canada and with Canadian corporations, and when you were having your life there in Ukraine and everything? Because I was wondering if this is a global phenomenon or just a U.S. phenomenon where people get canned, like around Christmas when they're desperately trying to
get canned during Christmas.
Hey, it's a real thing.
Interesting question. I never thought about that. And probably some businesses do exactly what you described, but seems to me that they don't advertise it a lot, and people don't talk about it. It's not in newspapers or media. So then how you would know about that if that's the case?
Well, you know what I think happened, Mark, is this, that the company was in trouble. He needed to fire a bunch of people. He wanted to do it very efficiently. So he invites them all to a Zoom party and tells them they're all fired. Okay, basically is what happened, because he had to do it. In other words, it wasn't like something as an executive you want to do it. Unfortunately, because it was so many people and it was on a Zoom call, which is, some people could record it, that it got out there. Are you kidding me? The Grinch just stole Christmas before everybody and did it, how bad that can be. Without understanding the entire situation behind it, that company was seriously in trouble. I think it was in the mortgage business, and that's a tough business, So I'm not going to say the CEO may have not had any choice. Now, maybe he shouldn't have done it through a Zoom call, but what is he going to do? Send emails to everybody, you're fired? So I think that the person did the best he can given those circumstances. It looks bad, but what are you going to do?
I understand now why people avoid Zoom calls.
Yeah, right. In other words,
fired.
Well, I mean, the other way he does, he makes 900 phone calls and tells people that they're all fired. If he was a really good executive, he gives it to his assistant and tell them to do it.
No, you're not kidding.
I am not kidding. In other words,
y'all are
if he's the CEO or the president, that is not what you do. He turns it over to the human resources department and tell them to fire the people. In other words,
it's an ideal world, but as you described, the company is probably in troubles. So
serious trouble.
How much time and consultants' fees, because there are a lot of specialists about fighting.
But see what happens. Okay, what happens, Sasha? A lot of these people that become executives never run companies, and they don't teach you this. There was a whole book on what you don't learn in the Harvard MBA school. Okay. But here's the reality of the ones that are seasoned executives that are still around. They would never do that. They would go to their human resources person and said, look, we need to get rid of 900 people. I don't care how you do it. If you need to do a Zoom call, you do the Zoom call. Now that means the human resources person is going to fall on the sword. The executive won't. The executive is going like, you're kidding me. Did the human resources department do that? I mean, that's the realities of the situation, Mark. A good executive isn't going to be
But
able.
I would imagine that the situation like we are discussing, the human resource department was first one to be fired. So by the time it was
Then you're
doing
serious.
Zoom call, there was
Okay,
no
okay,
human
good
resource
point.
department.
All right. For the people who are listening on LinkedIn that are executives, they already know the game. Okay, it's a chess game.
Oh, yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
and their game is you tell the human resources department to go fire 900 people. Then you fire the human resources department, Sasha. Okay?
Yeah,
What you
that's right.
don't do as an executive, you don't put your butt out there. By the way, that's one of the real problems we have working with top executives, Mark. When I bring them on the show, the good ones will actually have a media consultant with them, like a lawyer, sitting there telling them what to say, not to say. That was our problem with IBM. We're working with IBM. Stop! You can't say that. What do you mean you can't say that? Because it could hurt the image of IBM if you said that. I mean, so
Yeah,
and they
but
were right. I'm not going to say they were wrong. The whole thing is to defend the house and protect it. And the problem is, if you go to MBA school, you don't learn it. How do you learn it? You work for a major company or you consult with major companies for years. And then you know the strategic blunder of this particular individual. His blunder was he fell on the sword. You don't do that. You go to your human resources department, tell them to fall on the sword, let them do the Zoom call, and let them fire all the people. And then when the media backlash comes to you, you executive, you go, are you kidding me? Is that what the human resource department
but
did?
Nick,
I am so
Nick,
sorry that happened, and you
no,
still maintain your job, and then you fire the human resources.
no, I hear what you're saying, Nick. But isn't part of the problem
Oh,
also the role of culture? Because if I'm thinking about two of the greatest plays slash movies slash whatever you want to call them, because they've been both of those, they actually involved somebody getting fired around Christmas and the impact of that. Isn't that really the story of A Christmas Carol and the story of Scrooge? And isn't that really the story of It's a Wonderful Life? It was about a failed
yeah,
business person.
remember, Mark. Those are stories. We're talking about reality here, buddy. Okay, those are good stories for television, but in reality, it's a whole different cat. Reality is your business can go down the toilet at any point in time during the year, and that you have to make tough decisions anytime during the year. And so the thing is, this person had to make a tough decision, and it is what it is, But the thing is, the way it was done, I'm just saying. I think that Peter Drucker wrote a book on executive leadership, which was pretty good. But the thing is, one thing that you do, it's executive leadership 101. It's like Nepo when he snaps the knight pawn. Everybody sees C6 except himself. He loses his stupid bishop. Okay, when you're an executive leadership 101, don't fall on the sword. Read the prince. Go get your underling, let them fall on the sword. And then you go, oh my Lord, can you believe our human resources department do that? And then you go, as executive, I am so sorry, so apologetic that actually happened. Da 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 da, and you keep going on and on.
Well, speaking of going on and everything, apparently the Air Force, and by the way, I think they were number 4th on the poll of places that people were watching from and everything. They have apparently discharged their first 27 service members for refusing to take the vaccine. So apparently they have just recently said, sorry, you're not taking the vaccine. You're not going to be serving in our country and our duties and things of that nature.
That would be a good poll to put on. In other words, the service members being discharged, to agree or disagree, for that. I think that would be a good poll. I did a poll for Roe versus Wade, and we're doing a show tonight on Roe versus Wade. And the result of the poll is 70% said to keep it as is. They did not want to change. I personally believe you're going to see the Supreme Court uphold the Mississippi law, but I'm going to listen to people like Jeff Tygart. Hopefully he'll be there because he's got a real good pulse on what the Supreme Court thinks. He's called 2 out of 2 so far. So if he in other words, he goes, this is how he called actually Rittenhouse correct. He's called the case that happened, Ahmed Arbery correct, before the jury. So I want to see what Jeff Tygart has to call on this. My call is that the Supreme Court's going to uphold the Mississippi law, but I don't know. But if you look at what the people say, now this is where democracy, we don't really live in democracy. This is what the people said on LinkedIn. 70% said just keep it as is, don't mess with it. But remember, they don't make the decision. the people don't make the decision. The Supreme Court makes the decision, and they may say differently. We'll know more tonight after the show tonight. But abortion is still a pretty hot issue. But on the firing of those armed services, that would be very interesting to see what the people on LinkedIn say about that. I don't think you're going to get a good response as you do the worst president. The worst president just lit up the boards.
Yeah, that just lit up the whole thing and everything. I know we try to stay in touch with a couple of stories that are global, and one of them actually involves one of the areas that Sasha knows, and I'd love to hear what he's heard about this. But apparently, the Belarus courts have jailed a leading opposition figure for 18 years because apparently he tried to challenge folks there and everything. Apparently, his wife stood in for him and everything, but that has recently taken place. So, are you surprised that apparently this dissident has been jailed and apparently 18 years in that particular country?
He was the guy that they hijacked the plane for, right? In other words, the plane was flying over the Belarus.
Right.
They brought the plane down.
It was Ryanair.
Ryanair, right? Yeah. And Belarus is giving him 18 years. Now the claim was, from what I understand, the bogus claim was he was embezzling funds. Okay, the reality could be this: he was receiving funds from people that supported him, and he took the money, used it to live off of. Okay, in other words, you can take one person's reality and make it embezzlement. You know, and say, oh, you embezzled, so hence you go to jail for 18 years, because I think it was a Dushenko or whatever his name is. And Belarus doesn't like the guy. Now, you may be more familiar with Eastern European politics than we are, Sasha, since you used to live there. They play pretty rough over there, don't they? 18 years for embezzlement. What are your thoughts?
My thought that it's interesting that the last embezzlement of funds. Okay, this is my latest New in Chess magazine. This picture of Jan Nepomniachtchi.
Yes.
Interestingly enough, it was before the match. Jonathan Tisdale had interviewed with Carlson, and Jonathan asked him a question: do you think that your previous match experience is maybe your biggest advantage? Here is Carlson's reply: no, my biggest advantage is that I'm better at chess. How about that? Now, I spoke to Grandmaster Evgeny Baryev. So Baryev thinks that Carlson said that to intimidate Nepal. But the Grandmaster Baryev is wrong, because he's not subscribing to New in Chess, because if he would find a latest blitz game between Carlson and Nepomniachtchi from Norway Stavanger tournament, just months before the match. It was like a game between 2,700 player and 1,900 player. It was just so one-sided affair. It was just demolition, and that's a lot of people missed that game. They never looked at that game. This was the indication of what's going to happen in the match. Now, about embezzlement of funds, my theory is it's okay. You can call it conspiracy theory, and I admitted that on my last Saturday's show. But my conspiracy theory is very simple. If something happens, somebody arranged. It could not happen by an accident. It was something that somebody could seriously benefit from it. So when you look at this blunder of Nepomniachtchi in last game, G3, and by the way, I was watching in Russian broadcast of Sergei and Marina Makarichev. Sergei Makarichev is a grandmaster. He used to be a coach of Garry Kasparov in the 90s, so he knows a few things about chess, of course. Now, his wife Marina, I know her well. I think once they were on my chess program, by the way. So she's a lovely lady, but her level of chess is maybe a candidate master, so around 1900, maybe 2000 at the most. So they were analyzing position before the move G3 was done. And Marina says, oh, here is G3, and Rook has to go. Oh, no, it's impossible because pawn takes knight and white is in trouble. And Sergei looked at it, oh, yeah, that's obvious. All of a sudden, in 1 minute, the G3 move was made. They were both jumping and saying, "Oh my God, how could he do it?" So the girl, well, not girl, she's a lovely woman, in saying with a rating of about 2,000, probably less, she can see that move is impossible, and NEPA just does it. So my theory is that there was a serious bet of minimum $100,000, more likely even $500,000, that 11th game would be the last one in the match.
That makes a
And
lot of sense.
and if that's the case, now everything is so clear. You don't have to guess anything. Oh yeah, of course. So if you put $100,000, and the bet would probably, there would be probably odds of, I would estimate as 15 to 1.
Mhm.
So if you put $100,000 and you pocket $1.5 million, nothing's wrong with that. And if you put $500,000, then you would pocket 5 times as much, say 7.5 million. Okay, that makes sense. I would be satisfied. So knowing that somebody made very serious money on that, I would just say, why wouldn't you put $5 million on that bet since you knew result anyway? But all of a sudden, now every site, every commentator was saying what a brilliant preparation Napa had before the match. Oh,
Well,
it was brilliant preparation. Oh, he was doing so good. In fact, after moves, Napa play e4 and Carlson play e5. Napa had no openings to, even to play. He was playing all kind of anti-martial style. You cannot be serious to win world championship game, especially against Martian, using moves like a4 or h3 to avoid martial attack. That's not world
Right.
championship.
No, no, he didn't. He didn't.
So I think the embezzlement really happened, that all the money that was given to Napa for preparation and paying coaches or so on, it was all this money were embezzled and just put into the pockets of his coaches and himself and so on. Nothing was spent because there was no preparation whatsoever, in my opinion.
no, that makes a lot of sense. Hey, I know we're getting ready to wind down. There's some news stories that we have to get to tomorrow and everything because they were very interesting, including some that also involved Russia and some other parts of the world, some topics that we have discussed before, even here in the U.S. I'm just going to run down a couple of them. And of course, we can get to them tomorrow and maybe later on in the week and everything, because some of them involve everything from evangelicals to folks in same-sex relations, but not in this country. So among the stories that I'm seeing in the news are a story coming out of Senegal that lawmakers in Senegal are pushing to double the prison time for those that are involved in same-sex relationships. So they want to double the prison time. I can only imagine what the prison time is in that African country, but whatever it is, they want to double it and everything along those lines. And the Israel staunch evangelical allies are shocked by Trump's outburst on Netanyahu, and they are saying that they don't want Christian leaders are warning that they don't want to be don't put us in the position to choose between you and Bible land. So I guess they're telling Trump that they don't want to be put in the middle of that choice between him and Jerusalem and things along those lines. So that ought to be fascinating. I might have to do some research on that over the night and over the afternoon to find out more about what that is all about. And last but not least, Russia has blocked the UN move to treat climate change as a global security threat. They have said that while there is, 70 degrees here in Durham, North Carolina in the middle of December, that's not a climate issue. So therefore, they are not going to deal with it. And I said that was the last one, but I actually should also mention Haiti, because at least 59 are dead and dozens were injured in a fuel tanker explosion in northern Haiti, as if they didn't have enough problems in that particular part of the world anyway. And that is what's going on in some of the global community and all of that. So definitely it's all kinds of interesting news around the world, including Vietnam jailing its most famous activists for 9 years. So they just recently did that as well. So that's some of the international news that I just saw. And we are an international platform. So just let folks know about some of the international things, and definitely some interesting ones, including the fact that they want to double the prison time if you are of a same-sex variation of relationships there in Senegal.
Wow. Okay. So, well, I had to take some places off of my travel list, Mark. I guess Senegal's one of them. as well as Caracas. I'm not going to go to Caracas. Hey, look, I'd go back to Russia if Putin and Biden would kind of like get together and stop all this garbage, because I think St. Petersburg's a beautiful city, and
It is. It's one of the most beautiful in the world.
it's a beautiful city. And the thing is, I'd love to go back there again, but I don't want to fly over Belarus and have to go down and say, I heard you said something bad about me on the television program. You're going to spend 18 years in the gulag. And I go, look, I'm not really interested in that. Well, I took your plane down just to do that. No, look, I have nothing to do with it, you guys.
So you have to, Nick, you have to really learn a trajectory of the planes.
Yes,
Flying to
right.
Russia.
I'm not going to be flying over Smolensk or Minsk. No way.
It's kind of the way I feel about Israel. I would love to go visit the Holy Lands, no matter what your beliefs are in terms of religion, because it's the Holy Land for many places. But I'm really not feeling like bombs falling over me and everything of that nature. So,
Well,
like I said,
some people think of that in the United States. In other words, they don't want to come to the United States because they really don't want to get shot by our Second Amendment advocates.
Mark, you'll be
You know what I mean?
surprised. You'll be
What?
surprised, but Israel is the most safest place.
Yeah, it is a very safe place.
If you
I
are in
agree.
Israel, I'm not talking about this Gaza Strip or Palestine.
Yeah, but if you're in Israel,
Just in
they lock
Israel,
that city down, baby.
it's incredible how safe it
Right.
is. It's just,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can
In other
walk
words,
and-
I think you're safer there than you are in the U.S. I think U.S. is a more dangerous place.
Absolutely.
And people are scared to come here, literally, because of our gun laws that are completely out of control. And they listen to that around the world, like they're listening to this. And they go, "Why would you want to come to the United States? It's dangerous." And so when Shaquille was on, I said, "Shaquille, let's do a little homework here." And the U.S., your chance of getting murdered in the U.S. is 57 times greater than it is in Australia.
Wait a minute. I'm sorry. I just happened to see something that caught me off guard and everything before I get ready to hit this whole button and everything going off and everything. Certain countries are known for certain sports and everything. Like I said, you think of certain countries and they're known for their sports. Like you think of Brazil, one of the things that comes to your mind automatically is soccer.
Soccer,
If
right?
you think of Mexico City, one of the things that in my mind automatically comes to your mind, and maybe y'all disagree with me, is bullfighting. And apparently Mexico City is weighing a ban on bullfighting. So I'm sitting there going like, wait a minute, isn't that kind of like y'all's claim to fame?
Well, it's more Spain than Mexico City. So, but the thing is, but still, yeah, Mexico City. The problem I have with this is pollution. It's pretty
Nice.
polluted, and so it's high altitude, pretty polluted, and I got a problem going there. So I do check out all the places to go visit. If you got a good golf course, tennis courts, swimming pools, I'm in with no pollution. But if not, it doesn't. My lifestyle just doesn't lean myself to jump into a place where somewhere is going to arrest somebody as you're flying over.
No, I got you, and I agree with you on that. But I was just shocked that they would kind of ban bullfighting because, like I said, I knew it was more of a Spain thing, but it is also known as part of Mexico City. It would be almost like banning the running of the bull in Spain. That would be something that would.
Well, it's almost contradictory. People go, "Well, I don't like to see the bull killed." Oh, can I get my McDonald's hamburger tomorrow? I mean, what do you think happens to that cow or bull? I mean, it's a brutal world out there, buddy.
It is.
It's not going to change very much. So,
well, on the note that they may be banning bullfighting in Mexico City, we're going to get those lovely people getting us in and out of here. Like Sasha said, both tomorrow, both of our shows will be on. So I know that I've got some guests out of the world of entrepreneurship and out of the world of music and entertainment as well on the show, and I'm sure that he will have some great investment tips as well. So we're definitely looking forward to both of us being on tomorrow, but we might be popping back on some other things later on. I know Barbara H. Smith will be coming to us with her great guest, and then right before that, we're gonna have that discussion on Roe versus Wade with Nick and his lawyer friend. So that ought to be really fascinating, and I know people will be tuning in to that as well. And we're gonna see if we can't get up to 500,000 before the noon hour in this lovely poll of mine. And on that note, we're going to get on out of here.